All right. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning, Dawson.
All right. I know we're just doing the morning here. This is unlike us.
Yeah, happy Juneteenth, right?
Yes. Happy Juneteenth. Love that. Love it. I do appreciate it as a federal holiday.
Yes,
So
I think a lot of
I get
people
it. I
do.
get it off today. So
Yep.
I appreciate that. Um, but yeah. All right. No Vinny again this week. He is at PPA San Clemente right now. If you haven't yet, definitely check out his Instagram stories. It's pretty awesome. I think he's seen like half of the field at this point almost
Yeah.
in some of the
Yeah.
pro draws. So that's pretty cool. But got Pat. We're gonna talk a bit today, touch on some paddles you've been hitting. I believe Pat might hit us with a coaching tip at the end here. And then we're also just going to talk about some other stuff here. So without further ado, let's do it. All right, Pat. So what have you been hitting this week?
Yeah, a lot of stuff thanks to you. You dropped off quite a few paddles to me. So, for the sake of, trying to give each one as much time as possible, trying to go through them all, I hit with each of them for, maybe 2 hours each, I'd say, roughly.
That's
So,
pretty
for
good.
starters, I just went with um the CRBN True Foams. Got the CRBN 2. So just like the, standard shape. Loved it. And then I had the CRBN 3, which is the elongated version. I definitely hit more with the standard shape just because I'm used to a more elongated paddle. So I wanted to kind of get a feel for, seeing what it was like, giving up some of that reach, having maybe more of a better sweet spot. Um, I definitely felt like drives were fantastic with this, but it was taking me a little while to get used to it was kind of popping off the paddle a little bit, I thought, on some of the drops, resets. But overall, I loved it. Like counters up at the net, I really felt like it was giving me a lot of what I needed just to deal with those people, slamming the ball at me, which I feel like is how a lot of people play these days.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other paddles, the other line I used was just the newer ripples, which is the
The the second version of the ripples for
yes, the
context.
V2.
Yeah.
Sorry, not
The
the
V2.
newest, the V2. So I had, each shape. You got the hybrid, you get kind of like a standard, and then I think the other one was like a little hybridy as well.
Yeah,
But
the last one, that V1 or no,
yep.
the R1 it's an elongated with a curved top,
Okay.
which is kind of funky. I know. It's
Yeah.
usually they'll square off the elongated tops,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
see
so
curved
there,
top and I think hybrid, so that would
yeah,
explain it.
that's
Um,
and it's a common misconception, so you're not
yeah.
alone there. But yeah, so hold up that R4 again for me real quick.
Yeah, R4 right
Yeah,
here. The
grab that one right
R1,
there. Yeah,
R4
so
right here.
see, it's just a little wider. It's a little
Yes.
wider, a little shorter,
Yeah,
whereas
and
that
that's
one's a little
compared to the
longer.
other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
And that makes sense.
they're not much different. Like
Yeah.
they're not. But yeah. So which ones you like the most of those out of
Out
curiosity?
of the three, I preferred the R1.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and again, maybe just because I'm used to more of an elongated paddle.
Okay.
Um, I definitely like the standard one, and it was, we had a good laugh. But like I said, I'm used to the more elongated paddle. I'm kind of like a tall guy too, but I had an overhead and I just completely whiffed. Like I think I'm used to just that little extra bit, and I just
Oh
didn't
my.
read it right. And
Oh
right away I was like, "Hey, new paddle," built-in excuse.
yeah.
But no, I totally missed it. But they were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But definitely like that ball was just soaring off the paddle. Like I did have a couple overheads that I successfully hit, and I felt like, the ball was just gonna bounce out of the gym because the amount of force I was able to. And again, like tall guy, but I'm not a very strong guy at all. But just, having this paddle in your hand, I think definitely gives you a lot more power. With that, you're going to be giving up some other stuff. Like I felt like by the end of the day, I was feeling my wrist was hurting a little bit just because I
Ooh.
think it's a little heavier. So like the
Yeah.
force it was taking me to, do some of those rolls, some of those flicks. I was definitely feeling a little more in the wrist, but overall, like just a great experience. Um, and, like I said, I appreciate just the opportunity to try out some new stuff because there's just so much stuff out there. Stuff's always changing. These companies are always trying to do new stuff. So it's good to see the differences, because there's enough of them out there, in my opinion, which is limited. I'll say that. Like,
Yeah.
this is new to me. I'd say I'm more of just a player. I've never really thought much about some of the stuff you have, so it's good to kind of start
Well,
learning more.
get ready because the
Yep.
the wheel is only going to keep coming here. There's
Yep.
we got a lot to go through. But yeah, so I appreciate your takes on those. It's interesting to hear. As someone that gravitated the complete opposite way in the ripple spectrum, because I started similar to you, so that that standard elongated shape is
Yep.
that, like, for anyone that started pre like COVID era of 2020 2021, that was like basically the only paddle shape. It was that, and then it was the standard shape, but there really wasn't that many standard paddles. That
Yeah.
was considered like the shape. So I feel like a lot of us are used to that shape. And then we got these more additional shapes as pickleball developed and grew. I personally now swing more towards the wide body standard or the hybrid shapes. I currently main a hybrid shape. So it's interesting to see like which way you fall on the spectrum. I think it's good that you like the elongated more. It's what you're more comfortable with, what you're more used to, and I think it helps because I don't always love going through all the elongated paddles, but
Yeah.
I will say every now and then I do find some that I'm like, oh, this is pretty nice. But yeah, so I think that's great. And then for the carbons, I do find it surprising that you liked the 2X the most.
Yeah.
I really thought it was going to be the 3X for you. So that does surprise me. I definitely agree. Dude, that 2X is poppy.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
that thing is poppy. There is no other way of explaining it. I love
Yep.
that thing though. Like, the 2X was my main from like February until like I don't even know. I think like mid to late May, almost June. Like, and I swore by that thing. I just once I was able to get a little bit of a longer handle in my hands and a little bit more of a softer feel, I just gravitated that way. I
Yeah.
don't even know what it was that made me gravitate that way per se, um but yeah, no, that's awesome. And Pat's gonna just keep trying paddles at this point. I
Yeah.
know he's got some stuff I haven't hit yet too, so we'll probably swing it this way at some point as well.
Absolutely.
Um but yeah, and then you were all indoors for all that, right? What, Lifetime?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So you're
Yep.
playing on that fast surface too. So
Yep. And that lifetime ball.
the
So
Lifetime ball is fast.
yep.
Like,
Yep.
I enjoy it though. Like, I think it's a very good ball. I don't think it's a bad ball per se. I just think that if you pull it outside on a
Yes.
outdoor court,
Yeah.
it is a lot faster than it
Yep.
is in a Lifetime. But I think people don't always realize that because the Lifetime surface is pretty quick as well
Yep.
because it's more of like a rubber kind of.
Well, most of them, a lot of them were they just put them on top of the
Yeah, they're on
basketball
top of
courts.
they're on top of the
So,
basketball court. So
I mean,
that
yeah.
also adds to the trampolining effect and
Yep.
the skip as
Yep.
opposed to the bounce
Yep.
because it's digging kind of forward rather than going in and up.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I mean, look, I think that's good. This is actually speaking of what's next for Pat here. This is what's coming his way next once I finish on these. But this is the original Vapor Power by 11624, and then this is the Alpha Pro Power Vapor. They're both 16 millimeter. The only thing I have on the original Vapor Power is the 7 flick weight. I believe these are the tungsten ones by flick weight. I've really been enjoying the flick weights in general, and I actually enjoy the 7 weight a lot because it gives you that additional like handle weight feeling without putting weight directly into the handle, which I'd never liked the feeling of. Like, I've never liked the feeling of feeling that additional bevel line of like lead or tungsten in the handle. And I just also think that lead in the handle is kind of a dangerous combo
Huh.
just because it's toxic. But you know, I will say this. Again, I do need to put more time on this. I've only put a little bit just because, as Pat knows, I have had a tournament last weekend, which I'll tell you guys about later in the pod, and then I have a tournament this weekend. So it can be tough to test battles in tournament back to back weeks. But so here we'll go into this one first. So for the vapor power, I have put a good amount of time on this in the past. This is actually my backup main. I've pondered maining this for a bit. I just never really ended up fully going over there, especially when I was playing the carbon. This oftentimes, if I felt like I just needed a little more reach or I needed like that 16 millimeter feel as opposed to the 14, I would go to this. I will say this paddle is super like dense and thick. It really feels like a brick wall at times. There's no other way of explaining it. I think when I first picked it up, it reminded me of the old Selkirk Lux, the 20 millimeter one, where it's just like you have a wall, just literally like this, especially on like a block or a counter. And I felt that dense feeling I like, but I also like that 14 to 15 millimeter feel. So that's kind of what drew me away from this at first. But it's a great paddle going back to it and putting more time on it. Mine did come in on the heavier side, so I don't have any weight here. This is just protection tape because I don't like when the gradient turns a different color from it scraping the ground. And then just the flick weight on the bottom. And I just find that little flick weight brings the balance point down a little, which opens up the sweet spot a little more, kind of where I hit normally, rather than like way up here. Um, which you being an elongated person, I'm sure your sweet spot hit zone would be up here
Yep.
on a battle like this, just because it's a hybrid that's pretty close to that wide body
Yep.
standard shape. But yeah, I think that this one it hits hard. I think it's a power paddle in the low category for power. I wouldn't put it in all court. I would say that you know, yeah, I know most people would add weight right here, but I don't really think this needs it. I think it's already really stable. It's got a like an almost 7 twist weight. Like I would just go kind of more here if mine was lighter to add weight to this. Now going into the alpha real quick. So this came in at a 108 swing weight for me. I actually never ran twist weight numbers on this. I need to do it again, but I think I'm sorry, I did. It was originally about a 6.5, which is really good. But I don't know. My graffiti's been weird with twist weight lately. Like I don't fully trust the twist weight numbers I'm getting. I need to recalibrate it in that setting. But the swing weight numbers have been pretty accurate and legit. So I actually added weight here. This is the point 0.5 pickleball effect tungsten tape. Just bottom corners. I did the flick weight again. And then this does technically add one swing weight point, but I do it more for protection than for swing weight. And this brought it to about 112, which I've always told myself I really like to be between 110 and like 114 at the highest. The second I hit like 116 plus, I find my hands slow down. My invader that I main normally is about 114 to 115, so it's within the variety, but just due to those having a variety of things, I've gone through a couple of them and I have one that's on the heavier, I have one that's on the lighter, so it's depends what mood I'm in, I guess, how I'm feeling. um but yeah, so you go back into the alpha real quick here. This thing hits hard and it sounds really loud. Like it sounds way louder than the regular vapor, which can be good and bad depending on where you're playing. And I really like it. I like how light it is. I feel like I could add even more. I feel like I could go weight like almost up to here on it. Like that's probably a good like 9-10 inches of tape right there you could put. And I feel like it would still play fine. I do actually find some weight towards the throat here benefits this paddle a lot. I would put this as a full power paddle. I would say this is like a mid-tier power paddle. I do think it hits harder than the current vapors. I do also find it more plush though, which is really strange because usually there's a trade-off. You give up one of those for the other. But I think it's the newer, bigger cells in here, which you can actually see right there with the ball dust, which is kind of cool too. And Yeah, I was a fan. I got to put more time on this. Pat's going to put time on this as well. We're going to test it for break in too. I want to see if it breaks in or not. But yeah, and it's still that awesome award winning vapor shape, which is like one of my favorite shapes, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I was gonna
Uh,
say I love that shape.
yeah, for context, so here is like a very good standard 16 by 8 shape. And then here is the vapor at 16.1 by 7.9. And the vapor is just a hair taller. This is a rounded top, whereas this is more of a square, but still somewhat rounded top.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see the difference for yourselves there. Sorry, I know I have a little bit of a handshake, guys. It is what it is. I can't hold them still forever. um, but yeah, so that's a little bit about the vapors. I did do a full first impression video on the Alpha Vapor as well. I think I'm going to do a comparison video, and I might even have Pat do a little feature in it to help me with that at some point down the road between the two vapors, just because I think they're really interesting and actually fairly different from each other. Um, but yeah, so anyways, let's go into here. We're going to talk a little about face material on a paddle for this portion of it. So, to give context, there's a variety of different face materials currently in pickleball, and we might even see more. There's your general raw carbon fiber, usually Tourney T700 face material. There's Kevlar, or to be more exact, an aramid weave. So this is like Kevlar, and then these black lines right here are raw carbon fiber. And that is, it's like a 50-50 usually for that one. There's just Kevlar, which would be all Kevlar. There's the PET titanium, is what it's called. The polyester, I think it's like electromagnetic or something like that weave. It's usually the polyester weave, the PET, which is that titanium. So, like on the Invader, that has the titanium. And then there's also a variety of other things as well, but those are kind of the big, you know, I would say three, really. If I'm forgetting one off my head here, I apologize. But those are what you'll most commonly see on paddles. Raw carbon fiber, hands down, is the most
Yeah.
used.
Yeah.
Pretty much every pro on the pro tour is using raw carbon fiber. I think I've seen some Kevlar now. I think I saw one titanium paddle once. I think Dylan Frazier, who's sponsored by Volair now, was using one of the titanium ones at one point. I think then he used a Kevlar one. I think now he's on a raw carbon fiber one. But yeah. So I just want to talk about that a bit. I know Pat still might not have the most material experience with all of this, so I will start here in that my favorite of the bunch currently is the PET personally. I just like that it's soft. I feel I can control the ball more with it. I feel I get plenty of spin with it. I don't think it's the spinniest of the surfaces per se, but I do think that it's a great surface. It's a muted, dampened feel, and quite frankly, I enjoy that on my arm playing long hours, whether it's teaching, playing, tournaments, all that, and I enjoy that feeling. I will say that I definitely think that it benefits a lot from something like a fiberglass underlayer, like the Invader and like things like some of the other titanium paddles have. Just because titanium alone is a little too soft for me. So I do think in a multi-layer setup, it's good. I think raw carbon fiber is still great. I happily play raw carbon fiber still all the time when testing and playing. I like Kevlar. It's a little too softish and plush for me at times. I really like the aramid weave more. I think that's the combo of the Kevlar and the raw carbon fibers where it's at, especially in the new like Pickleball Apes aramid weave. I think it's a really good mix. I do like I've hit stuff like the Ruby, stuff like that, where it's a full Kevlar. I do like those as well. They're not my cup of tea per se for me personally. And then I would say right now, if I had to choose, I think a vapor with a PET face would be really cool. I do think they'd have to sneak some fiberglass in there under it, so that might change the vapor layup. But I think a lot of their paddles are usually CFC right now, or like CCF or something like that, which is usually carbon fiber, fiberglass, carbon fiber, or just two layers of carbon fiber and then fiberglass. So, but yeah, that's a little bit about my end there. Out of what you've hit so far for your own experiences, where do you think you lie on that, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, again, just tough, just like you mentioned, experience wise. Like I've since they've been around, it was carbon fiber for me. Like I always just used to think
Yeah.
like that's what it was, that's what it needs to be. So it's definitely interesting to see some of the new materials out there. So I know, like I mentioned to you, I'm gonna be probably looking to use the new apes or the newer apes that you gave me
For context,
tomorrow.
here's a
Yeah, that's the
PVC.
titanium, right?
Yeah, this is titanium. This is the aramid fiber weave. This is raw carbon fiber.
Yep.
And then if this was like a ruby, that would be all Kevlar.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, I
and
was probably
there's
gonna
other
start
materials. There you go. Yep.
using this tomorrow. So I'll probably have a better idea um of the
Yeah.
different surfaces because to me like you know like I kind of mentioned, just not having as much experience thinking about these things, I'm always just like, can I spin the ball? I don't really think much beyond that. So to have the opportunity to try these new materials out and to be thinking about this stuff more, I'm definitely interested to kind of see what comes to mind for me. Because, outside of, like I said, all the multitude of carbon fibers that I've hit, I don't think I've really used much else. So it's kind of like a biased
Yeah.
opinion because all I really have to base it off of is the just usually, and it's just like the T700, which is what I always thought it was, the only
Yeah.
thing out there. So
I think that's great. Like I just there's nothing wrong with raw carbon fiber. Most people, if you ask them this question, they're gonna say raw carbon fiber. So I'll
yeah,
definitely at some point down the road bring it up again. I think it's a great talking point. I will say this. I do think that in the end of the day, if you do a variety of surfaces, you probably should include a raw carbon fiber offering for paddles just because it's what most people are most common with. But I do think there is market and playability for some of these other surfaces as well. I don't know how often they'll stay around. Oftentimes it can be fads and trends that bring them in a lot, but yeah, I mean, so far they've been staying. But I
yeah,
mean, who knows in 3 to 5 years even we might be playing with I don't know, wood. We
yeah,
might go back to wood again or something.
right,
We might go to I don't know, like space rock or
yeah,
something,
moon
like,
rocks,
but touching on the spin piece there, this is something we can chat a little bit about is some of those paddles are fairly newer than what you
hmm
were playing with prior. Did you notice a difference in terms of grit?
I definitely felt like both. I mean, both of them. I guess I felt
They
so.
feel
Typically,
more?
like yeah, more. So typically, I'm usually like majority of the time, I'm slicing my returns a
Okay.
lot of times. Um, so I definitely felt like some of them were cutting a lot harder than I'm used to, and then just some of the dinking up at the net, just putting a little slice on it. I felt like it was gripping pretty good on the faces of the CRBNs and the ripples. Um, but it wasn't like to the point where I was like, whoa, something is, drastically different here. But I definitely felt like it was spinnable and controllable with both the CRBN and the Ripple. Like I said, though, maybe a couple times if I swung a little too much, that ball might be, you know, lifting up more than I would like. But overall, I felt like it did what it was supposed to with the spin. Like I didn't have any issues where I would, I'd make that motion and then it wasn't moving or something like that. So,
Yeah, no, it's an interesting take. For me, I actually night and day usually notice it. If I took, let's say I have a brand new raw carbon fiber paddle versus one I've been playing for 4 to 5 months, I actually usually find they're more spinnier if it's the same model coming over.
are you saying the newer is more
The
spinnier
newer
to you?
usually, oh yeah,
Okay.
usually way more spinnier. And it's just It depends on how the paddle generates the spin, though. So, for example, those ripples are pretty dwelly. So the
Yep.
dwell time and like the pace is usually what generates the spin. Whereas some of these paddles that more just kind of grip and roll off
Yeah.
like that, per se, is how they generate the spin, then I find it's a night and day difference for me personally. But again, it depends on surface, paddle, and all that. So that's usually, for context, a raw carbon fiber paddle.
Yeah.
Comparing a new version of it at the same weight and specs to maybe a 4 to 6 month old version of it. Here's the thing, though, like we were mentioning earlier, back in the day, like those Ben John signature series. That's the first thing I can think of from Franklin.
Hmm.
Like every 2 weeks, dude, people were changing those out.
Yeah. And
I
you
mean,
could
it
see
helped.
it.
They were only $100, like,
Yes.
but yeah. So I just like we've gone a long place from that in terms of grit. And I know that Selkirk has this new Infinigrit coming too. That's supposed to be like a much longer lasting paint grit, so that also looks interesting. But yeah, so it's definitely an interesting kind of. We'll call that the grit talk right
There you go.
there. But yeah, so diving in real quick, I did just want to talk about I did just play a tournament. It was a veterans charity launch tournament in Waltham over the
Awesome
weekend.
cause.
Yeah, it's super awesome cause. Sorry guys, I'm a little under the weather. But basically I played with a good buddy of mine, Dan, who I practice with all the time. I play like no men's with him though. I usually play against him a bunch in mixed doubles and big groups or like little one court things. Awesome guy, good player. I'm pretty sure he's starting to aspire towards the senior pro. I think he's done some of the qualities for those. I usually do like age 4.5, 5.0 stuff. So my normal partner Justin wasn't able to play. So I asked him kind of last minute. He said yes. So he tossed in it and it was a 4.0 plus, so like a 4.0 and over, which is really common in this area. That's how they'll do
Yeah.
a lot of the draws. And it was supposed to happen Saturday. Had 7 teams signed up. So it's like, okay, we got a decent sized draw. 7 teams, it's a pretty good number for this area. It's usually about what, 8 to 10 usually fills a draw
Mhm.
here. It's probably about 20-ish people. And it rains like it has every Saturday morning since March here without fail. So they reschedule us for Sunday because they run the rest of their draws later that afternoon. We go from 7 teams to 3 teams, including us. So we ended up playing the same 2 teams 2 times each in pool play. Then depending on where you would finish, you would play. If you were the 1 seed, you had a bye to the final, basically. And then if you were the 2 seed, you would play the 3 seed in a playoff to play the 1 seed in the final. And that's how they did it. Just because they only had 3 teams. Super awesome guys. I didn't know any of the guys we played prior. I think the first team we played, one of them was local and the other one was semi-local. Awesome guys, younger guys. We ended up winning the first game like 11-8. Something it was pretty close. We actually did not start well. But we ended up winning 11-8. Then we played this other team, the Grafton guys, and we got smoked. Like there's no other way of putting it. They just came out and they drove the ball at paces I have never seen, basically. Outside of maybe like screwing around on the pickleball court with like a delaminated paddle. But these guys are actually they both had Gen 1 paddles, which were fine. Like the paddle wasn't too hot, anything like that. But they just had the most unbelievable drive and crash, shake and bake, or drive game I have ever seen to the point that like we just couldn't get the ball down. It was relatively cool out, so the ball was moving, about normal speed, I'd say, early in the morning there. And so we ended up actually losing that 11 zip. Then we played the other team again, had a better score. I think it was like 11-5 or 11-6 the second time we played them. Then we played this team again, and we ended up having a battle with them. I think at one point we were up like 5-4 or 6-4 on the switch. And then eventually, I think it ended up finishing 11-6 that we'd lost that one. But we played them and we were like, okay, we can play this team. I normally in tournaments historically kind of gravitate more not specifically one side, but a side rather than a straight up kind of rec feel per se, just strategy wise. And we ended up playing straight up a good amount of this, and then we did that a bit against them this time, and that did work a little, as well as just also I think we were more just ready for what was coming our way because they played that way the whole tournament. But the thing is, too, even when we got to the kitchen and could dink with them, they would still eventually like hit a crazy flick.
Mhm.
Or one of the guys had, which was the most annoying combo ever. He also had the lob on top of like the death-defying drive, and I was like, you can't have both of these. Like, there was no real trade-off there per se, and he was fast too. So, but they were all great guys. Like we chatted with both of the teams a bunch after. They were good dudes. But so we had this close game with them. So we finished that. We finished 2-2 in pool play. So we then played the other team, the third place team that we essentially they had also lost to the other team, so they were 0-4 at this point. We played them. We ended up winning our playoff 11-3. We actually played really well in the playoff. And so we were like, okay, we're into the final, which it's only 5 games, you might say, but in that pressure environment, like
Yeah.
you start to feel it a little. So like we were getting super tired, but we definitely had a little tired under our belt. And we're like, okay, these guys aren't going to be able to keep up this driving crash this long, 3+ hours here. They did it well. I give them credit. Like we played this final with them and like we used timeouts, we strategized all that, but they just reeled off 6, 8 points quick. And I think we ended up finishing like 11-3, getting in it towards the end there. Like it was competitive, but like I just the 5-0 plus drive and crash, it's a tough order. And so it was it was good to see though, like, you know, and people drive the ball a lot these days. I think it's more of a power game, becoming more of a power game necessarily than touch. And Pat and I are from the older pickleball generation in a sense where like we have played the just stink game, we played the all around game, and we played the just bang game as well enough to know those games. But I'll say, I think the bang game is definitely trending in if you can do that and there's no punishment these days. Whereas back in the day, like half those balls would just sail out because there's no grit on the paddles per se. So it's interesting to see. I also that's one of the reasons why I like doing these tournaments is meeting new people and seeing, what's going on out there, different styles, stuff like that. But yeah, so I definitely I jokingly with Dan, I was like, dude, we got to just go get your ball machine, set the thing to like Rafa
Yeah.
Nadal and like just have it fire balls at us for like hours on end and just sit there like this and just block. Like, but yeah, it was super fun time. The weather was good for it Sunday. Yeah, I it's a silver medal, so it wasn't bad. It feels a little weird saying that it only being two other teams, but we finished whatever, we finished 3-3. Or no, yeah, we finished 3-3. So not a bad day per se. But yeah, and so my one this weekend is in New Hampshire, and I think it's about 10 teams, including us, and it's with Justin. So we'll see how that one goes. Also, relatively new tournament, new draw. Never played just about anyone else in the draw prior, so excited to see that. And I've done a good amount of New Hampshire tournaments in the past, but this one is I think it's a newer spot. So yeah.
Excited to hear how that goes.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to definitely I'll report back on that.
What are you using? Are you going to use the
So
Invader
I
again?
I will get into that in a moment when we do our main paddle segment here.
All
But
right.
yes, as of right now, my plan is to probably stick with what I'm using, but I'm tempted right now. So we'll see in a moment here. But yeah, I did want to touch in that quick. Pat's got a good point, and we should dive into our mains, what we're using currently. So I have no idea what Pat's going to be because he's hitting all sorts of different paddles
Yeah.
right now. But this week, I am definitely I was definitely highly pondering the alpha. This thing is awesome. Like so light in the hand, such a good shape. Um it's just a little too hard hitting for me right now. That's it. I am not fully adjusted yet to keep up and keep my ball down and how I like it with this material yet for a tournament. And sorry, that core for a tournament.
Yep.
So I am actually sticking the Invader. This is my dedicated just practice one because as you guys can see, there's a nice puffy corner right here where the edge guard is flaring up because the edge guard's loose, unfortunately. So that's why it doesn't have the tape up top. I have the nine flick weight on here, the copper one. I actually kind of like the nine still for these because it's more weight than the seven, and I just feel like it brings that balance point right into that little alien face here, which is where I like to hit the ball in the Invader a lot. And other than that, it's a stock paddle pretty much. The only other thing I do to them is I take that stock grip off immediately and I go to uh, overgrips, usually you dripping or Wilson. And that's how I run this personally. I'm planning on maining this. I've got a couple of them. Yeah, just Gen 2, all court for me. What about you? I know last time we did this, you had that Selkirk. What was that, the 008?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I know you've been playing that. I know you've been playing some ripples. You've been playing some carbons. Let's see. Were you swayed at all?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, you touched on it earlier. I got some stuff coming. Should be en route soon, so that'll probably make the shift to the main then. But for the sake of, you know, trying out the cornucopia of paddles that you dropped off to me,
I love that.
um, I mean, I'm trying to just commit to whatever it is I'm using for the time being. So I mean, I'm gonna starting tomorrow. I'm gonna be going with the Pulse S's for at least a couple
Okay.
days. I mean, I feel
Okay.
like
So, all
whether it's good
right.
or bad, I feel like I'm gonna get as much as I can to get a good idea on how it feels. So it definitely was easier having the three different ripple shapes. I was able to kind of, go back and forth a little more. Just say like, oh, maybe the wide body isn't it, so on and so forth. So, but for now, like I said, it's going to be the Pulse S with
Yeah,
the new apes.
I gotta write Ivan back when he does if he does another launch for apes and get all three shapes next time rather than just the one. But I will say this, like out of those three shapes, the Pulse S is where it's at in my
Yeah.
opinion, just because they're elongated.
Yep. More
It
my style.
it's a super elongated. This is the older version of it.
Yeah, that looks like
It's like a
not
tennis
right.
racket
It doesn't look
almost.
right. Yeah.
So it's very long, whereas that Pulse S shape, it is this mold. It's the same mold.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure. So I think this is a good shape. It's a long hybrid basically. So it's a lot similar to the Invader shape, which I know I talk about a ton on here, but the Invader shape to me is just a very good shape. You can see the Invader is a touch wider in the corners here because they flare the corners out. Um, but yeah, so that'll be fun. I think you'll like those. Looking forward to hearing about that on the next
Yep.
pod
Try
for
that
sure.
Kevlar, that
Yeah,
weave.
you're getting the aramid fiber, Kevlar, carbon fiber weave. And then at some point, I'm gonna make my way over there to Lifetime and hit with you guys. So I'm
Absolutely.
thinking that's the plan as well. We do have some Instagram Q&A to close. I know it feels like we've been on for an eternity right now. um, but it's just because we were knocked off some stuff off of camera for
Yep.
another time here. But going into our Q&A here real quick, let me just check. All right. Our first question, I'm going to keep them anonymous. I kind of like that
Ooh,
more.
okay.
Yeah, I kind of like keeping who asks them anonymous. Who is your favorite pro and why? I'm going to let you take that one to start.
Oh man, just like putting me on the spot right away, huh?
I guess
I
so.
mean, it's tough. I'm not just gonna say Ben Johns. I could, but I really feel like, um, and again, I don't watch as much as I used to, but I'm gonna have to go with CJ, right? Klinger, that's his name,
Yeah.
rocking the proton.
Yep. He's
Yeah,
got
I
the
mean, just
flamingo.
yeah, I mean, I've always liked some of those, like, I don't know if you'd want to call them trick shots, but just some of like the Ernies I seen him hit with that like crazy cross court angle, his flicks, like he's just fun to watch. I always like seeing, not that I like seeing them across from me, but I always like seeing like young kids out there just kind of shaking things up. It always frustrates me because it's like I've been playing this game a long time, and then some kid hops on the court and it's just like doing crazy stuff. But just like fun to watch, you know. Um, I think he's got like great hands at the net. He's dropping the ball a lot too, which is still good to see that that is a big part of the game because like you were touching on, I know a lot of people these days, everything is just a drive. And if you can do it, do it. But I think you got to be able to do both. And it's good to see him mixing that in. And like I said, mostly just the like entertainment factor from watching him. And he just seems like a just really like chill guy out there. Like he's not like too emotional. He's just like having fun. So that's my long answer.
No, that was perfect. I love it. We're not ones for concise words, so it's
All right.
okay. Answer as long as you want. I'm fine with that. But yeah, so I think that's a great example. Again, like I'll take my answer on it. For a while, it was Ben Johns. I don't
Yeah.
have a favorite pro right now, personally. I watch a good amount now because I'll watch when I can. Guys, it's not always on at the most convenient watchable times, to be honest. A lot of us, like, we're doing stuff, whether it's on the work week or the weekends. Like, this is the pickleball industry. We do work on the weekend a good amount, to be
Yeah.
clear, in that rackets paddle realm in general. But yeah, I mean, I would say right now I'm really enjoying kind of Gabe Tardio and Hayden in them. I think Tardio is just
Yeah.
insane. Like just the
Yeah.
flicks and the stuff he's doing, I think is awesome. I do enjoy Ben. I really like Diascu. I just think he's got a good head and he's got a good game. He plays, he can play that newer style. He combines it with an older style too, and that he just doesn't miss. And he's just a
Yeah.
rock. He's just a solid left side rock. And as someone that's gravitating more towards the left these days and trying to really emphasize that role, I think he's a good role model for me to picture a game off of. So I do like Diascu because of that as well. But I'm going to say Gabe for my answer. I think Gabe's
Nice.
got it going on right now. He's got a lot of swag. He's got a lot of game. And he's got that old, I think it's the Gen 2 PIKKL paddle,
Yeah.
and he's still crushing it against like all these
Yeah.
brand new paddles, which I think is awesome. Um, so all right, moving on. Next question here. Our next one is of the new facilities opening up in the Massachusetts areas, what is the one you're most interested in? I will take this one just because I've done a good amount of the seeing the other facility work, which I'm sure Pat will get into down the road here with me as well. But I think the new 11-0 looks really interesting in Patriot Place. I do think there's other ones coming too that are very interesting as well. I believe there is like a padel, tennis, pickleball combo coming in. It might be Hopkinton. I apologize if I'm wrong there. Um, but yeah, I just off my head, that's the most recent one I can think of that I've seen images of and talked with people about, and I definitely think that'll be interesting. Um, Looking forward to seeing that whenever it opens up. Um, but yeah, I'll keep going here. But all right, our next one here, still keeping them anonymous. What is your favorite paddle design? All right, Pat, this is you.
Yeah.
So
Well,
when they
I
say
feel like we already
design,
touched on
it's
this,
yeah.
right?
When they say design, I feel like this is I feel like they meant shape.
Okay. Yeah, that's where my head goes.
But if they mean design, like the graphics specifically, I feel like this is a
Well,
no-brainer.
that's a clear
Like,
cut winner. It's got to be, you
like
know.
I feel like this is a no-brainer. It's just
Yeah.
this is the only one with an actually, I mean, maybe like the Fat Boy too with the donut on it, but like it's got to be a bread and butter paddle
Yeah.
if it's graphic design on
Yeah,
there,
that's not
hands
even
down.
a
Like
competition
it's not
there.
even a contest at that point.
No.
That's just because most other cattle companies that are making like a performance space paddle, it's usually just something like this where it's just a
Yep.
black face and
Yep.
light logoing and that's it, which is how it should be. Like to be honest, I don't know if I want to stare at a giant alien every time I play. But
It's
hey,
a good little target though, like you said. I mean, that's what I used
yeah,
to say with those engages back in the day, you know, with
I
that.
like it's like the engaged target.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what
Yeah.
I think of it as, but it's actually in the middle, unlike the engaged one being on like the top right or left.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so I do like it for that. But yeah, let's call that shape. That's
Shape.
just so
Yeah.
go
I
for it.
mean, yeah,
What's your
we know,
preferred
like I
shape right
said, I
now?
mean, just elongated. Again, I'm open to change, but that's just what I'm used to just from years and years
Just that
of,
standard 16.5 by 7.5 wide.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, just, just that little extra reach is what I'm looking for. So,
So I am completely dialed in to this Invader 16.25 by I think it's like 7.7 or 7.75 shape. So I'm going to say this shape. I will say though, I think that between hybrid and like the standard, for standard, I'll use the standard like towards the wide bodies. This 16 by 8, I do really like this shape. I normally gravitate more standard and wide bodies, but I would say for now, I'm gonna have to give it to the Vapor.
yeah,
I think this is the best shape on the market right now,
that
hands down.
looks the coolest, I think,
It
for sure.
looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like just take the pretend this is black as well. Like just
Yeah.
pretend this is all black. This shape alone looks and plays amazing. I think it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
So that's what I would go with. I do think the Invader hybrid shape is also a great hybrid shape. They're very similar shapes. I think that you really can't go wrong with either one of those shape molds. I think that what happens in hybrids that sometimes makes them maybe go wrong one way or the other is when they go like longer and less wide, and then it's like this skinny but not elongated paddle, and it gets funky. I've seen some crazy hybrid molds too. So like I don't know if you saw the one from Volair recently where it's like a handle like this big, and then
Jeez.
it's like just this wide thing. Like that thing looks insane, but who knows? It could play amazing for all we know. It
Yeah.
could be this whip cannon. But stuff like that. So I do think that for me, it's definitely going to be in that hybrid to standard shape for me. But look, elongated is a great shape. Like there's nothing, it's personal preference at that point.
Yeah.
But let's
I'm
go. We'll
open to
go two more
change.
questions here.
Open to change. Looking forward to
Yeah.
that vapor.
Yeah. Oh, I think the vapor might get you.
Yep.
I do think it might because you're not giving up the reach per se
Yes. Yep.
fully like you are when you give it up to say something like the V2 R2 Ripple where
Yes.
it's like 15.8 instead of it being 16 because this is
Yep.
16.1. So, yeah, let's go in here. Oh, I know who this is too, but I'll keep it as anonymous.
Anonymous. Yep.
um, okay. This one is for Pat specifically.
Oh
Okay.
man.
Pat, since joining the pod, what do you think is the most interesting, kind of thing you have done in addition to the podcast in pickleball?
Oh man.
This is a tricky one.
Yeah,
This is a tricky one.
it requires me to think, which right
Yeah.
away I'm not loving, but it's tough. I mean, like as far as my pickleball experience these days, I wouldn't say it's very interesting, right? I
Okay.
mean, I'm coaching and I'm playing maybe once or twice a week. So and again, it's kind of tough because I feel like I've already touched on a lot of this, but the most interesting thing is just the fact that I've had this opportunity to try out all these new paddles, right? Coming up, like for me, it's always been see something I like, try it, I like it, I'll buy two of them. Like that's what I'm using, right? Until it breaks, until whatever. So I haven't really switched things up that much. So for me, to use five different paddles in like a 3 day span is very interesting to me because I've never done anything like that. And the games that I'm playing, like, yeah, they're rec games, but they're competitive. Like they're with, people that are of like a higher level. I'm not playing, none of us are pros, but still, like they're good games. Like I'm not just out there messing around trying to lose points. So it's interesting to try to work on my game while using a new paddle because obviously, like I said, it doesn't give me a ton of opportunity to really get a feel for, how I'm hitting the drops, how I'm doing this, how I'm doing that. Like I got to make really quick little tweaks in game, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, like I think one game I lost, I think it was like 11-2 or something like that. Fortunately, I can blame the fact that I'm trying out a paddle, so right away it's like,
Oh yeah.
hey,
First thing you're gonna
tilting
say.
the
I love it.
skews. I'm usually playing indoors, so I can't say it was the sun or the wind, but new paddle, so it's like, hey, not my fault. But it totally was. But yeah, again, long answer, but I think that kind of touches on the question.
Yeah.
But that would be it for me. Like I said, just the experience of trying out new paddles, especially in a short time frame.
I think you answered it perfectly. I was about to say I think that's a great it's a tricky question there. I
Yeah,
don't
that
love the
was
way they
tough.
worded that.
You're gonna have to tell me
So
who that was off camera
I
because I'm
will.
curious
I
now.
will. At some point I will down the
Yeah.
road. Now, we'll see. We'll see. Who knows? It might stay fully or not. We don't
All
know.
right.
We'll see. We'll get there. But so our last one I have right now is what's down the pipeline for you guys paddle wise. So I feel like I touched on this a little earlier in the pod, but definitely the new Alpha series stuff for 11.6.24. I did just message a little bit with David, and I think we're going to get the other two shapes as well. So we'll probably do a full deep dive of those on one of the future pods to come. Um, I have honestly been chronicling backwards a little. I've been in the Gen 2 territory a lot lately because I find it's a great, like, all court territory to be in. And so I have been doing like Invaders, Flare Prime X's. I did the bread and butter filths recently, the newer ones that came out. Those are Gen 2 paddles. They're newer, but they're still kind of Gen 2. So I've been doing a lot of that stuff. I know Pat's in like Gen 3, Gen 4 land right now with no escape
Yeah, I might
anytime
want to leave.
soon.
I don't know how I
I
feel.
don't I don't think Pat's gonna want to leave because I didn't want
Yeah.
to leave it for a long time, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think at some point I might try to toss a Gen 1 at us once in a while just to see the difference and like really feel it, especially after spending time in those, hotter paddle territories. But yeah, I mean, as of right now, that's kind of our pipeline again in this kind of paddle reviewer, paddle chatter, whatever you want to call it, space. Things change quickly. Paddles come out, they get released, stuff like that. So I can't really speak further to it than that. I will say there's some interesting stuff coming out. I did write them recently, but I know Honolulu Pickleball just did the J2 NF series, the notched foam series. I think those are really interesting, and they have face materials for all the different face materials that are popular on the market right now for those. So who knows? I might even toss in some there a little and personally grab one of those just to try them. I think those are really interesting. I do think they're at a really good price point too, and I'm hearing good things so far. So we'll see. But yeah, other than that, really just the Alpha series and then kind of diving further into some paddles we haven't gotten to put as much time on. So yeah, all right. Well, I'm not gonna lie, this has felt like a marathon, but this
Right.
was this was a long one. But yeah, I'm very hopeful for Vinny next week on the pod. So we will do that. I think it'll be a lot of fun. You guys are gonna love him. And yeah, all right, man.